Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. Welcome to another episode in our debut Spotlight series, where we shine the light on the freshest authors and their work. Today, the spotlight is on Cameron Capello and her debut novel, I'll Look For You Everywhere, a deliciously romantic novel that will have you yearning for a summer in Italy, but only one written by Cameron herself. Cameron is a writer and content creator from New York. She graduated summa cum laude from St. Joseph's University with a degree in English with a focus on 19th century British literature. She's the content creator behind @Chamber of Secret Books on TikTok and Instagram, amassing over 530k followers. Her debut novel, I'll Look For You Everywhere, is out tomorrow and published by Pan Macmillan in the UK. Here to chat all about it, welcome Cameron to A Pair of Bookends.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and I can't wait to chat about books and everything.
I'm so excited to chat to you. So my first question, which I love to open with, is what are you currently reading?
So I just finished a book last night and it's The Guest by Emma Cline. Not my usual genre, but I have to say it is the fastest book I've read in so long. I finished it in 2 days. And it's kind of like a psychological thriller. It's about a girl who it opens up in August and she's on Long Island in the Hamptons. And that's what originally drew me to the book because I'm from Long Island. So I was like, ooh, fun, like summertime in Long Island. No, it's not that at all. I told my work, I said I could not like I have not stopped sweating since the second I started reading the book till the end. Like, I was just so much anxiety the whole time. That being said, highly recommend and think everyone should read it. Emma Cline is an incredible author.
I have got that on my shelf, so you've just that's going straight to the top now. It's going
Yep.
straight to the top of my pile. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are
No
you
problem.
quite a big, because you said before that it's not your usual genre, and obviously you've just wrote a romance book. Are you more towards romance? Like, what is your usual reading vibe?
So I will always switch between romance and literary fiction. So at the same time that I was reading The Guest, I'm also reading Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. So I don't know, it depends on my mood. I'm very much a mood reader, but when I want to feel depressed, and like I really want to tap into my sadness, I'll go for literary fiction. But then if I want something fun and flirty, then I'll switch to romance.
Yeah, if we need something depressing, we know Sally Rooney can be relied on.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, when I need a little hint of Connell Waldron, I will go to Sally Rooney because all her books are so good. And I'm so excited for her new book coming out in September.
Me too. Did you watch the Normal People adaptation?
Yeah. Did I watch it? I watched it front and back. And like that was during COVID, so I really had nothing else going on in my life. So I don't know if it's because of that, but it sort of absorbed into my bloodstream and now it's just a part of who I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm definitely planning on getting a Normal People tattoo at some point because like I have to. Like it's a part of me now.
I love that so much. I want to see what this tattoo is.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were just as obsessed as I was because I feel like I've not stopped thinking about it since I watched it, and I rewatched it and feel like I could have rewatched it several more times, but yeah, it's just I think it's one of the best, if not the best adaptation I've ever seen of anything.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good, and I think Paul Mescal just makes it stunning. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. He's so good. Conversations with Friends adaptation, didn't love it as much.
Yes,
Did
me
you see
too, me
that one?
too.
Okay. Yeah. Wasn't my fave, but that was my favorite Sally Rooney book,
Oh my
Conversation.
God, that's the same with me.
Yeah.
I liked Conversations with Friends more than Normal People books wise. And then
hmm
when it came to the adaptation, Normal People was my favorite, which is so strange.
yeah, I feel the same exact way.
Now let's get on to your book and your kind of journey as a debut author. So to start with, could you tell the listeners what your book is is about.
Okay, so it takes place in a small sleepy village in Italy, and we have a girl named Madeline who is in her first year at Oxford University, but her sister is getting married, so she has to go home for her sister's wedding. Little does she know that her best friend's older brother, her neighbor, Theo, is coming home for the first time in 7 years also.
What are the
So,
chances?
yeah, I know. And it's been 7 years. Obviously, things have changed, you know, they're not who they once were. So their initial meeting is just immediate sparks flying. But Theo has some secrets and some burdens, and Madeline has them too, which sort of keep them from really getting together. And there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of we shouldn't do this, but I want to, and like forbidden romance. So I feel like that is what sums up I'll look for you everywhere.
I think that sums it up very well. There is a lot of angst, which it makes a lot of sense now that you are a big Normal People fan because there's a lot of that in there. So if people are also fans of Normal People, I would say this is pretty good in the sense of all that angst that you get from Connell and Marianne. It's definitely in there, but then we get this beautiful Italian summer, and you write that so well, and we will get on to that. But as it's a debut spotlight episode, I'm always eager to kind of find out what the journey has been like in having your debut published. So could you tell us a bit about that journey and what it's been like for you?
Yeah, so my journey is a little unorthodox, I'd say, because basically I started making videos on TikTok where I just would share little excerpts of things that I've written in my notes app. You know, I'm an English major, so I was like, I just would write sometimes, but never do anything with it. So while I was in college, I was always scribbling some little daydreams. And then I happened to see one video on TikTok of this girl saying, like, oh, I'm really in Wisconsin, but I wish I was somewhere else. And I was like, wait a minute. People are doing this on TikTok. Like, I have so many daydreams just piled up. So I said, you know what? Let me give it a go. And lo and behold, some people liked it. And that's how I started building my community. And then I started getting questions like, oh, are you writing anything in like long form? You know, like, are you writing a book, not just these 30-second like daydreams? And I had been writing a book, but I had sworn no one would ever see it. You know, like the only person that had read maybe 10 pages of it was my sister. And I was just very uncomfortable sharing it with anyone, especially because you've read it. It's a romance, so it gets spicy sometimes. I was like, no one's gonna know that I write this on my spare time after writing about Jane Austen. So I was like, there's no way. But people were asking, and I was like, you know what? Let me be brave. Let me be brave in my home because it was COVID at the time. So I had nothing else going on. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try. I'll try sharing it. So then people ended up liking it. So that really gave me the courage to finish it. And then I finished the book, and I had been teasing this out for probably maybe like a year and a half. And someone from Macmillan reached out to me and was like, hey, like, I see your excerpts all the time, and I was wondering if you have a novel. And I was like, oh, like I do. And yeah, so her name's Kinza, who I'm talking about. She's an editor at Pan Macmillan, and she is the first person to have ever read my book. So she read it, she liked it, and then that's how it kind of started from there.
I love that so much. And we are recording this. We're a couple of weeks out. So, how are you kind of feeling as we're edging towards publication date?
I feel a lot of stress and a lot of dread, which I know are not the feelings that I should be. I'm very excited for people to read it, but I think that, yeah, I'm very excited. Okay. But as someone who is on social media and does like doom scroll a lot, you know, it's like it is part of my work. I can see how negative and like mean people can be online. So I think that will always be in the back of my head, like how people will perceive the book. But I just gotta trust that, one person will like it and we'll go from there. But yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to go to London and meet the Pan Mac team again and meet people who have bought my book. And yeah, I'm really just I feel grateful that I can even, do this. So
It's so exciting, and I know that people are gonna love this book this summer. Like, it's the perfect summer book. And that's not to kind of, I don't know, I feel like you've got to be kind of careful when you talk about books being summer books or beach reads, because I don't mean to kind of belittle what the book is. Like, it's wonderful, but I do think it really brings us summer vibes. And I was telling you before we started recording that I'm in rainy Manchester, so I really needed this. I needed this, Cameron, and you pulled through. I loved it. I will say on the subject of social media that you do have a really supportive community around you. And I went on Goodreads, and I know a lot of authors avoid their Goodreads reviews. You've already got like an outpouring of support on there, which is so great to see. And I wanted to just read a little part from your acknowledgements in the book, because acknowledgements are one of my favorite things to get to in a book. And you wrote, "To my little TikTok and Instagram community, I could never have done this without you. If it weren't for your endless support, this book would still be sitting sadly in my drafts unfinished. This book is as much yours as it is mine." And I think that's such a lovely thing for you to write, because you didn't have to write that. And like I said before, you've got a huge following. So how has your community on social media kind of helped you throughout this process?
I mean what I said in the acknowledgments. Like, I could not have done this without them. This is the first like big thing that I've ever like really gone through with. I'm very much a hobby person, so I like to skip through hobbies and stuff. And this is like without the constant outpouring of support and love, and just like knowing that there are people like me that love tension, that love angst, that love normal people, that I don't know, that really love romance books as much and view them not as something like just silly and juvenile, but as something that really has shaped them. It gave me all the motivation I needed to finish the book for them, because yeah, like I don't want to disappoint anyone. Like, that was another thing. It was like so many people are saying how excited they are, and I didn't want to just let them down, so they gave me the support I needed. Yeah, I'm so thankful for them.
I don't think you'll be letting anybody down with this book. I was completely immersed in it, and it's one of those books where I got annoyed every time I had to put it down. Like, I'd be like, no, I want to know what happens with them now. Like, which I love when a book makes me feel like that. When you leave the room and you kind of can feel it pulling you back like a little magnet.
Mhm.
That was
Right.
the vibe. But let's get into this book. So your book is set in Italy, and you are currently in Italy, and you describe the setting is described so beautifully. And you feel like you're walking the streets with them. You feel like you're sat having the spritz in the bars, and you really get a sense of the place. And I wanted to ask, what connects you to Italy?
Yeah, so I am Italian. Both my parents are from Italy. So I've always had a strong connection with the country. My dad moved to the US when he was in his 30s. So he's like full on Italian. My mom, she was born in the US, but her parents speak Italian, so that was the only way that they could communicate. So I just grew up immersed in Italian culture, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I went to Kibasso for the first time. I had gone, actually, that's a lie. I had gone when I was little, but I didn't really remember that. But it was the first time where I was like, I don't know, growing into myself, and I came to this small town in Italy, and it wasn't anything like Rome or Florence. It was like, it felt just the real people of Italy, and I was just obsessed. It was so different from New York, and I immediately just started cataloging everything that I loved about Italian culture, and always playing in the back of my mind. So I knew that when I was writing a book, it had to be in Italy, because no place had ever made me feel that much, besides Scotland, which one day we'll write a book in Scotland. But yeah, it was just, an incredible experience to be there with my dad, to meet my family that are living in Italy and get to know the people. And yeah, I love it. I think also it's just such a romantic place.
Hmm.
I've never looked at a building and been like, that building's romantic. But in Italy, everywhere, it's just like oozing in sunlight and like, I don't know, there's just something sensual about it. So I was like, this is where a romance book has to be set. Like, I need to write this. So yeah, that's my connection with Italy.
I love that so much, and I'm so jealous that you're living out there now. I
Yeah.
lived there for a few months when I was younger, and I worked there as an au pair, and it is just the most beautiful place ever, and it's just a different vibe out there. It's the culture, the food, the weather, just everything is so beautiful. It's just life feels elevated out there.
I 100% agree. Yeah. So it just felt like the perfect place to set a book in.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
Let's talk about your protagonists, Theo and Magdalene. They're both quite troubled characters, let's say, and I was completely captivated by them and, wanting to know their secrets and their stories. How did you go about creating them, and did you kind of map out their story beforehand, or did you learn about them as you wrote?
Yeah, so because this was the first book I've ever written, I definitely didn't follow, I'd say, the planning that most authors do. I didn't have an outline prepared before I started writing. And I originally started this book as a way to sort of deal with my own feelings and to understand like how I deal with things in life. So, like that being said, modeling is very much part of me. And there will be moments in the book where you're like, Madeline, why didn't you like stand up for yourself? Why didn't you do that? And I, while writing that, also had those thoughts, but I knew in my heart, like that's how I would deal with the situation. So it was hard to like confront that, I would say,
Mhm.
and to see that, love could make you weaker than you would like and things like that. So it very much started off as me dealing with my own feelings about love and romance. And quickly it did transform into like a book that I could see outside of myself. So then
Mhm.
Madeline became her own person. And Theo, I knew from the start, just based off of the books that I read, I love a troubled bad boy. Don't love them in real life, like we can leave the bad boys behind in real life, but in a book, I freaking love it. So I needed him to just have this like desperation behind him that he's masking with this coolness and this confidence. And I needed someone, i.e., Madeline, to be able to break that like exterior of Theo. I'm trying to think of people who inspired Theo, like other characters. I'd say definitely Connell Waldron. I really loved his dynamic. And he's not perfect. Like Theo sometimes will piss you off and be like, "Why are you so annoying?" But I just think like that's human nature.
For
Not
sure.
everyone can be perfect. So I have to include these moments where they make mistakes. And yeah, so that's Theo and Madeline. I don't know if that answered your question,
No, it
but
does for
yeah.
sure. And I think, those are the things that make them feel human is that kind of nuance and the imperfections of them. And, like human beings do stupid shit all the time. Like we say things we don't mean, like we do things we don't mean, depending on the moment or depending on what experiences we've personally had. And I know we keep talking about normal people, but let's be honest, we're obsessed. And it's a good it's a good point of reference. But, when you watch that or when you read that book, like they often don't say how they're feeling to the person, they don't tell them how they really feel. And we get a lot of that with Theo and Magdalene. Like they don't, immediately kind of profess their love for each other, or they don't say how they feel straight away. It's a lot of kind of push and pull. But that is the nature of human beings, as you said. I was curious as well, why did you want to feature both perspectives?
Yeah, so it originally started with just Madeline's perspective, but I said if Theo is going to be this broody and this secretive, then someone's got to know what he's actually feeling inside. Like there has to be a little doorway open so we know that he's not like just an asshole. We have to see that he's struggling as well, even if you can't see it. So that's why I essentially decided to include two perspectives, but also I love seeing the male perspective of wanting them so badly, but then their actions are not, showing that. And
Yeah.
I love that like tension within himself. And yeah, like personally, when books have that, that's when I like am giggling and screaming. So I wanted to show that.
Because
Yeah.
he does say some really shitty things, doesn't he? And he doesn't mean them, and you're
The whole
like, what
thing.
are you doing?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so that's why like I needed people to know like when he says that stuff, like he does regret it,
Mhm.
immediately. It doesn't excuse it, but we know that, because of his past, whatever,
Yeah.
he has trouble letting people in and he sort of like, fights back at first.
Yeah, for sure. Can we talk about how horny this book is? Uh,
Bad.
I am obsessed with the sex scenes, and I was laying in bed next to my boyfriend reading this book, and there was like 4 pages of
Oh
sex.
yeah, I know. I know. They're long.
And I literally finished reading those and like had a moment, and I was like, God, that was intense. But like, I kind of felt like I don't know. I felt awkward that I was like laying next to my boyfriend reading this because I was like,
Yeah.
I felt like I was so in this with them.
Oh my God, I love that. That's
And then it came
great.
out of it, I was like, oh God, it's a bit hot in here, isn't
That's
it?
incredible. Oh,
How do you
okay.
find writing sex scenes?
Okay. At first, when I was writing them, it was the cringiest thing ever. I did have to like sit down with a glass of wine and like I had to relax in order to write them because I was just constantly looking over my shoulder as if someone was seeing what I was writing, even if I was home alone. So that was bad at first. But then I started reading other romance books where I could see other authors and how they dealt with that. And I will say Ali Hazelwood, her books were very much the like inspiration for, I would say, my ideal sex scene. So I was definitely looking how she did it. I was like, okay, if Ali can do it and not feel embarrassed, I can do it and not feel embarrassed. So then I just went all in. I'm like, just write like no one will ever read this. And then I did. And then when I sent it to my editor, her comments were just like, I need more. I need more sex scenes. That's all. Like she was like, where is more? Give me more. And I was like, oh, fun. So then I started
You
getting
were like,
into it.
okay, I can provide this.
Yeah, once I had like one person being like, no, like give me more. And because I didn't know if I was like doing too much, if this was weird, but then she gave me the confidence to just go all in. So that's where I went.
Thank God you
And
did.
yeah. I loved it. I loved writing them. And now I'm currently writing another book. Now I'm like, okay, let's see how
Let's
deep
do
we can
this.
go. Yeah.
I love that so much. One thing that is very horny that you write in the book is and you might not be expecting me to say this, but is the giving and receiving of verbal consent, which is very important, guys. Why was it important to you to feature this?
Because I just think I first of all, it's important.
For sure.
Especially as Theo knows Madeline isn't one to say exactly what she's feeling all the time. I think he really needed that confirmation from her to know that this wasn't a mistake, that she wouldn't regret this. And yeah, I just think once you both know how badly both want it, it's like that's hot. Like,
For
okay.
sure.
Yeah, I just like that external display. I don't know, just like another layer of just desire for one another.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think we're starting to see it represented more, but kind of historically in like love stories, like we don't see that. And I think, in like popular culture, because we don't see that, it tends to be why men historically haven't asked for our consent.
Mhm.
And, I don't want to kind of paint people with the same brush, but I do think it's starting to change. So it is really great to see it represented on the page. And we did see it I'm bringing it up again, but in the Normal People adaptation, I know there was a lot of talk around the intimacy coordinator in that show.
Mhm.
So we are seeing a change, but I just thought it was really great that you represented that on the page.
you. Yeah, I do think it's really important, especially for a book, like when you can't see it on screen, like
Hmm.
I think it's important in the writing to sort of show that both people are interested. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I want to ask what your dream casting would be for Theo and Magdalene.
Oh God, this is so hard. Okay, my dream casting for Theo and Madeline. I would say okay, let me start with Theo. Theo, I've always been obsessed with Dev Patel. So it would
Yes.
be him. Who else would it be? Do I have a list somewhere? I feel like I once wrote this down. Like I know Theo James probably like he's older now. Like it can't be him because he can't be like 27, but damn, like him with long hair. Like that's that's
That's the vibe.
obviously Paul Mescal,
Yeah.
Theo, like yeah, I'd say maybe those are my top three, Dev, Paul, and Theo. And then oh God, Madeline. Okay. Who would Madeline be? Oh my gosh. Let me why is this so hard? Did you picture anyone? Like, why can't I picture anyone right now? I'm trying
I
to look at
was
my Pinterest board.
I was watching House of the Dragon the other night and I was thinking Olivia Cook would be great,
Ooh.
but I don't know if she is too old to play her. I don't know.
But I love that. Okay, wait, I'm going on to my Pinterest board to see if there are any because there's an Italian actress. Let me find her name. That
See, that's the important thing is that they're Italian and
yeah.
I'm not thinking.
Mhm. And so her name is, oh God, I'm gonna butcher this. I have to disclose both my parents are Italian, but that doesn't mean that they taught me any Italian. So her name's Benedetta Porcaroli. I'll leave it in the chat. But to me, I feel like I always was subconsciously picturing her. Also, great show on Netflix called Baby. It's an Italian show, but incredible show, incredible acting. It will hook you in episode one, and she stars in it. So yeah, I think
I
definitely she's probably my Madeline.
I need to look at who this is.
Yeah, she has a similar vibe, I think, to Daisy Edgar Jones, which
Oh,
again, normal people
gorgeous.
like, yeah.
I can totally see that.
Yeah. And then also, I think subconsciously, this man was Theo, also from Baby. He's just gorgeous. Like, it's insane. Lorenzo Zerzullo is his name for
Oh my
anyone
God,
wanting
yeah.
to. I highly recommend it. And then, wait, it's all coming to me.
Are
And
you
now, finally,
joking?
I mean, it's insane. No one should look that good.
No.
That's crazy. Okay, there's one sock football player. I
I'm
almost said
having too
sock.
much fun with this.
Yeah, I know. I'm showing you the Italian, side of life. Okay, what's his name though? Oh, his name is Ricardo. Okay, Ricardo
Calafiore.
Calafiore. Okay, and that's the final guy.
Oh,
As you can
stunning.
see, there's a trend. Like long hair is my kryptonite on a guy.
I literally promise you all that we're not objectifying anybody. But at
Yeah,
the
but you
same
need to have
time, we can
some inspiration
appreciate.
in your head, yeah, while writing. Like, and they're very much artwork. They're beautiful,
They
so
are.
trying to do them justice.
For sure. I really enjoyed that.
Gosh.
I want I want to chat about the sister dynamic in the book because I feel like, of course, this is a love story between, and I think I've been pronouncing her name wrong. How do I pronounce her name? I've been saying Magdalene, but it's not. Is
Oh,
it Madeline?
it's modeling,
Okay.
but I went to Oxford once and we were doing a tour of like the colleges, and there was one college called the Magdalen College, but then the tour guide told us that it was pronounced Maudlin. I was like, "Oh, that's so interesting. Like I
Oh,
love that." So that's where
Madeline.
that came
Okay,
from.
cool.
But I understand that most people are gonna say Magdalene,
Magdalene,
which
yeah.
I'm also okay with. I don't care.
So yeah, like I said, like it's obviously a love story between Theo and Madeline, but the sister dynamic feels like a kind of love story in itself, which is really lovely to read. And not only between Madeline and Lucia, is that how you say it? Lucia? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But also with Madeline and Anika, who I feel like it's probably the most important duo probably the most important relationship to modeling outside of Theo. There is
Mhm.
her father, but is Anika, who
Yeah.
is a sister to her, but not by blood. Could you talk a bit about writing their relationship and why it was important to you for modeling to have Anika?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just obsessed with female friendship. I think it's one of the most beautiful, just like in my own personal life, it's the most beautiful relationships I have are with, my friends who don't, there's just something so beautiful about not being related by blood, not having to sort of like deal with each other's shit,
Hmm.
but doing it anyways because you just love each other so much
Yeah.
and you're not gaining anything out of the relationship, but it's just from how much you respect and appreciate that other person
Hmm.
that your love shows so much. And I have just been so fortunate in my own life to have those relationships like with my real sister, my mom, my best friends, and without them I wouldn't be me. So I felt, modeling too, she wouldn't be herself if she didn't have Anika, and know that there is always someone who will have her back no matter what. So yeah, I just thought it was super important to have
I
that.
think
Yeah.
female friendship and it is such a beautiful thing, and I think it's like one of the most intense. I don't feel like men have the same kind of friendship as us. Like
Yeah.
it's just not the same, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I
I feel
know.
like it's like intimate and like in a really beautiful way, and you have like a connection that I just don't feel like men allow themselves to have that kind of connection.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
agree. And also, there's this one line in Fleabag where she says, like, women are born with pain, like, men have to find it, essentially. So, like, that's why, war was invented and, like, violence for men. But, like, females, we just intuitively have like, pain that we can recognize in each other. And I don't know, there's just something, like, horrible about that, but also
Hmm.
beautiful about it and try to like soothe one another with like unspoken pain too, just like the reality of being a woman in itself, we
Yeah.
just understand each other.
For sure. I want you to be my new best friend because you've mentioned Fleabag, you love normal people. Like, I
Yeah.
just feel like, Cameron, there could be
No,
something
that's
really special here.
I think like those are my top two favorite things,
I
Fleabag and
love that.
yeah. Mhm.
Your dedication as well is to my little women. Who are they?
So that is my mom and my sister. Growing up, we always called each other Little Women,
Oh, I
because
love that.
yeah, I mean, my dad was around, but he very much understood like this is a female house, like he's very much a girl dad. So it was just glitter dresses everywhere and like always playing pretend. And without my mother like showing us that that was okay to do, I
Hmm.
wouldn't have known that not everyone, has that example in their life. So I just knew that they had to be included in the dedication because they made me feel, normal when maybe I'm not normal, like I think I'm very strange and weird. And
Strange
but
and Weird
so
is
are
great,
they.
by the way.
Yeah, so are they. And I'm like, I want to be like them, so
I
they're
love that. I
yeah.
love that so much. So, if it wasn't already obvious to the listeners, I absolutely love this book. And as I said before, I'll Look For You Everywhere is out in the UK tomorrow when this episode goes live. It is also, I believe, coming out in the US. When is it coming out in the US?
So it's coming out in the US January.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so exciting. So it's out in the UK tomorrow and it's out in the US in January. Very exciting. I'm not going to ask Cameron any more questions on the book because you should all go and buy yourselves a copy, which you can do via the link in the show notes. But before I let Cameron go, I asked on Instagram for some questions from your followers, and we've had a few come through. So I'm gonna rattle them off. Somebody asked, "What is your favorite song to write to?"
Oh, great question. I have a playlist on Spotify if anyone wants to know the actual songs I was listening to while writing, but I think Phoebe Bridgers was definitely my number one, either Scott Street or Moon Song. Those were on a constant repeat for me. And fun fact, I can only write to one song at a time. Like like I can't listen to multiple songs, so it just has to be the same song on repeat
I
over and
love
over again
that.
for hours. Yeah, so it was definitely changing between Moon Song and Scott Street. Also, Lana Del Rey sometimes made her way through. Anything sad was.
It's really funny actually because I was sat in a cafe yesterday finishing your book and it was getting towards the ending and I can't remember what the song is called and it's Only Know You Love Her When You Let Her Go. What's that
Oh
song?
yeah, I
I
don't
was
know.
sat and I was reading the ending and I felt so emotional. And
Wait, that's actually so true. Oh my God, I
yeah, literally.
processed that. Yeah.
Um, but we're not giving spoilers away, so.
No, not at all.
So I've got another question here. How do you come up with and decide on names for characters?
Okay, so when the first draft, the only names I could remember were Theo and Madeline. Everyone else's names were different the whole time. I would forget like what name was what, and I would just give them a new name and say, okay, I'll come back to this second draft. So like Theo's dad probably had like 8 names by the end of the book. And then my editor was so confused about what was going on. She's like, why does everyone's name keep changing? And I was like, that's because I have no emotional attachment to the name. And then I go back, and as I said before, Madeline's name was inspired by that one college in Oxford that I got to visit. I just like fell in love with Oxford when I went there on a study abroad program. And Theo's name probably was inspired by Theo James. I mean, Divergent did, have a special place in my heart growing up. And I think that too just stuck. And I believe Theo is a very, very hot name.
It
So,
is.
yeah, that was that. And everyone else's name, very much inspired by people in my real life, not so much their personalities, but the family that I have in Italy. I sort of was thinking about their names and I wanted kind of unique names that I know are legitimately used in Italy,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to do like Mario if, I don't know any Marios. So yeah, everyone is someone from Kivaso that I've
Love
met.
that.
Yeah.
Somebody also asked how many drafts of I'll Look For You Everywhere were there?
There, I think probably 4 drafts in total,
Okay.
which I did not realize when I first started writing how sort of not little, but how important it is to just word vomit everything on the first draft and then figure it out on the later drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4 in total because it would go back and forth between my editor and myself for edits. Yeah.
That's actually really good advice as well for new
Mhm.
writers, is that it is good to just word vomit on the page and get it all out, and then you can kind of tweak everything. And I
Yeah.
think it was good what you said before in like the sense that you were writing this just for yourself and not with the thought that anybody else would read it. I think that's really good because otherwise you're holding back too much.
Exactly.
Um,
And it took me a while to even when I knew no one else would write it, it's sort of the same like relationship I have with writing in a diary. It was like I know that no one else will read this, but I just had that subconscious feeling like, but what if? What if someone sees it? So I really had to figure out how to get rid of that. And once I did, which just came through like years of writing and just doing
mhm.
it every day as a routine, that's when I think the real magic started to happen.
And the magic did happen.
Thank you.
This is a great one. At Acorn in Ain? I don't know
Oh,
how you say that. Any teasers for the next book?
okay. Teasers for the next book. It also takes place in Italy. Surprise, surprise. I will say that, what can I say about it? I am using my favorite trope of all time, which is marriage of convenience. And I was inspired by the show Medici on Netflix. I mean, if you just give that a look through at the cast, you'll sort of see why the inspiration struck because everyone in that show is beautiful. And I was like, wow, I need to start writing, and you guys are going to be my inspiration. So, yeah, those are the 2 things. Medici is involved, the Medici family, and marriage of convenience are the 2 main things.
Very
And it's set in
exciting.
Florence. I will.
Oh my God, gorgeous. I haven't seen this show and I feel like I trust your recommendations now, so I am gonna have to go and
I
watch that.
recommend it. Yeah.
My last question for you, to round off this episode is, do you have any recommendations for the listeners?
Yes, always. I think people on my Instagram are sick of me talking about it, but Talking at Night by Claire Daverly.
So good.
So good. And I read that because people were comparing it to normal people, and they are not wrong, but it
Mhm.
also just has a beautiful voice in its own. Like, yeah, definitely normal people vibes, but Claire has outdone herself and created such a beautiful, beautiful story and relationship between the two characters. So that's my book recommendation. Show recommendation. I've been watching, much like everyone else, My Lady Jane.
I need to start this. I've got it favorited, but yeah, I need to
Yeah.
get to that.
It's so cute. It's very cute. Yes. Nothing like Normal People or Fleabag, I will say. It's got like a Princess Bride vibe to it, and like a Bridgerton vibe. Ooh, Bridgerton season two, always season
Season
two.
two, very good.
Anthony Bridgerton, wow.
Yeah,
He like created, brooding, I feel.
yeah, stunning
Yeah.
artwork.
Mhm.
Those are great recommendations. Thank you so much. Where can they follow you again, Cameron?
So you can follow me at the Chamber of Secret Books on Instagram or Chamber of Secret Books on TikTok.
Wonderful. And if you enjoyed this episode, you can give us a rate, review, and subscribe. That would be very lovely. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at a pair of bookends pod on Instagram and at a pair of bookends on Twitter and TikTok. There is a link in the show notes for Cameron's book, which is wonderful and the perfect summer read. So go order yourselves a copy ASAP and go give Cameron a follow if you don't already. But lastly, thank you so much, Cameron, for joining me today. I've loved chatting to you, so thank you.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. And I'm excited for people to read I'll Look for You Everywhere if they
I'm
want.
excited for them as well. And please come and chat to me about it when you have, because there's so much more I could have chatted about, but I didn't want to give anything away. So
Those are great.
important. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.